Right, this is the first video in biopsychology. So it's going to be looking at the central nervous system. If you have a look at the bottom here, this is exactly what you need to know on the specification. It says the divisions of the nervous system, the central and peripheral nervous systems. Within the peripheral nervous system, you need to know about the somatic and autonomic nervous systems. So they're the things we're going to be going through, so you know exactly what each part of the nervous system is about. Right, before we get started on this, I just want to show you how amazing the brain is. You don't need to know this for your specification, you don't need to write it down. It's just a few amazing facts to show you about all the different things we're going to be looking at in the next few videos. So, your brain can process information at speeds of 260 miles an hour. So information is flying around that quickly in your brain. You have enough axons inside your brain and enough neural pathways inside your brain to wrap around the earth 4 times. Okay, your brain doesn't have any pain receptors at all. It can't feel any pain whatsoever. And on top of that, it's also the fattest part of your body. Okay, the brain is made up of 60% fat. It can also generate enough power to power a light bulb. Having a bigger brain doesn't necessarily mean that you're going to be a lot smarter. Some of the most intelligent individuals we've had on this planet, like Albert Einstein, had relatively small brains. So it's not necessarily you've got a bigger brain, you're going to have higher levels of intelligence. Also, your brain hasn't really changed too much in size from when you were a baby. And that's why babies have exceptionally large heads in comparison to their body. It's why they've always got to support their head, because their brains are exceptionally large in comparison to the rest of their body. So there's a few little facts about the brain, and like I said, you don't need to write any of these down, it won't come up in your spec, but it just shows you how complicated this organ that we're going to be looking at for the next few videos actually is. So we're going to start having a look at the nervous system, and if we were to break it down into a diagram form, this is exactly what your nervous system would look like. Okay, we've got your central nervous system here, made up of your brain and your spinal cord, and this is where all the complex processing of information takes place and where decisions occur. So the central nervous system is only made up of the brain and the spinal cord, making the decisions up here in the brain and then going to be transported down the spinal cord. The peripheral nervous system, on the other hand, okay, is made up of all these little motor neurons, circuits, all around your body, okay? And what they do is they take information from the senses. So let's say you feel pain or heat or you smell something. The information from those senses will be sent to the brain and the central nervous system via the peripheral nervous system, okay? And the peripheral nervous system is also important at getting the information from the brain and then transporting that to your muscles and to your glands, okay? So the peripheral nervous system is really, really important. Not only does it tell the brain information from all your senses, but it also transmits information to your muscles, to your glands, when the brain wants something to take place. So a nice easy diagram form here. Central nervous system, you can see in blue here, made up of the brain and the spinal cord running down the body here. Whereas the peripheral nervous system is made up of all these peripheral nerves, again, getting information from our senses, delivering them back to the brain, and then getting information from the central nervous system and delivering them to our muscles and to our glands. One thing that you've got to know is the organisation of the central nervous system, okay, and the organisation, how it looks in a hierarchy. So here we go. We start off with the nervous system at the top, divided into the 2 key parts, our peripheral nervous system that we've looked at, and our central nervous system. Okay, and we know central nervous system is made up of 2 parts, the brain and the spinal cord. So this is where all that information processing takes place. Our autonomic nervous system and somatic nervous system are what make up the peripheral nervous system. Okay, and we're going to have a little bit more depth and a little bit more of a look at this autonomic nervous system in this video and also in future videos as well. And the autonomic nervous system is made up of your sympathetic nervous system and parasympathetic nervous system. And we're going to go and have a little look about what these 2 things do in a minute on the video. So we're going to start having a look now at the nervous system in a little bit more detail. And as we know, the first part of the nervous system, central nervous system, is the brain. Okay, and this is our sort of center of conscious awareness. Okay, and it's divided into two hemispheres, your left hemisphere and your right hemisphere. And one thing that distinguishes us humans from animals is that we have a much larger cerebral cortex. That part of our brain, the slightly more complicated neural pathways in the cerebral cortex, are what distinguishes us from animals. And as we know, the other part of the central nervous system that you must know is the spinal cord. Okay, and the spinal cord is basically an extension of the brain, and it transports all the messages from the brain to the peripheral nervous system. So that's its main job. It's transporting all the information from the brain down the spinal cord to the peripheral nervous system, where then we can send messages to our glands, to our muscles. And the central nervous system is also vital for any reflexes. Okay, and we'll start talking about reflexes in our lesson. So now we're going to have a look at the peripheral nervous system. And as we know, it's divided up into two parts. The first part is the somatic nervous system. The somatic nervous system has three roles really. The first role is it receives all the information from our senses, so sight, smell, and delivers that information to our central nervous system. So every time you smell something, every time you put your hand on something hot and get that feeling of pain, it's the somatic nervous system sending that message to your central nervous system. Secondly, it's involved in any reflex action. So we'll have a little go class where we're going to look at the knee reflex. And those sort of reflex actions are down to your somatic nervous system. Thirdly, its third job is to send messages from the central nervous system to your muscles. So they're the three jobs. Senses, from the senses to your central nervous system, reflex actions, and from the central nervous system, it sends messages to direct movement of our muscles. So it's got three main roles. The next part of the peripheral nervous system is the autonomic nervous system. And the autonomic nervous system is key for all things like breathing rate, heart rate, all the things that occur automatically or involuntarily in our body. So all those things have to be coordinated. And it's the autonomic nervous system that does that particular role. It's in charge of all of our internal organs. And the autonomic nervous system can be divided into two separate systems. The sympathetic nervous system, which increases all of our heart rate, our breathing rate, makes our pupils dilate, and helps us deal with emergencies. And this is known as the flight or flight response. So the sympathetic nervous system is linked to increases in adrenaline and causes increases in heart rate, breathing rate, and our digestive system. The parasympathetic nervous system, on the other hand, is what brings us back to normal and relaxes us after an emergency. So this is the complete opposite to the sympathetic nervous system. It reduces our heart rate, it reduces our breathing rate, it slows down our digestive system, and it basically reduces that fight or flight response. So here's just a bit of a slide to show you the complete different actions of the sympathetic and parasympathetic nervous systems. And they both mirror each other. So sympathetic system increases heart rate, parasympathetic will decrease it. Dilates pupils, constricts pupils. And they change different parts of your body differently. Okay? The sympathetic nervous system is all about preparing our body for emergencies. And the parasympathetic nervous system is all about bringing our body back to normal.